So there's a group of nearly a dozen Senate Democrats that are teaming up with President Trump and the Republicans to gut Wall Street regulations. Yes, that's right. According to Common Dreams, there are 11 Democratic senators, plus Angus King, who's an independent from Maine, are joining with the Republicans to push through GOP-crafted legislation called Senate Bill 2155. Now, what it would do is that it would basically deregulate the financial industry. So let me get into the specifics here of what's inside this bill and why they would be disastrous. Now, one provision, Section 107, would let sales agents steer customers to high-cost lenders in the manufacturing housing market. So instead of actually looking out for the customers, no, they can look out after themselves. Yes, we want to make more of a profit. No, we don't care if we steer you towards high-cost lenders with high interest rates. Now, in some cases, those very same lenders could be owned by that firm that makes the mobile home, which of course gives them a double profit. And of course, the rates may be worse than those from other independent loaner or lenders. And there's another thing, of course, since they do serve mainly lower income Americans, this is another way that they could perpetuate fraud upon people who are poor. So people who don't quite understand interest rates and things like that. So that's Section 107. That's one provision of this bill. There's another one. Section 104 will shut down the data collection that shows if a bank has a pattern of loan discrimination based on race and gender. Now, wait a minute. I thought the Republican Party was supposed to be for racial justice, right? I thought that's what we cared about. Well, it turns out at least these 11 Democrats said, you know what? No, we don't care. We actually care more about our profits for the banks than we do about racial justice. In fact, what this would do is that it would let banks that make less than 500 mortgages escape reporting under the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. Now, the effect would allow banks to return to the practice of redlining mortgages. Now, what is redlining? Well, basically, that was an old practice they used to refuse loans in certain neighborhoods. These certain neighborhoods, you want to guess who comprises most of these neighborhoods? Oh, right, African Americans. So minority neighborhoods, they would refuse loans to. It doesn't matter your credit history. It doesn't matter any of that. It just matters, oh, if you're black, we don't want to actually give you this loan. Wonderful. Now, not only that, but Section 401 of the same piece of legislation would deregulate 25 of the largest banks by removing other additional safeguards. And Section 203 would let certain banks speculate with as much as $500 million in taxpayer-backed deposits. But wait, we don't want to pay for your risky lending, or your risky gambling, I should say. We don't want to pay for your speculation. This is why we need a 21st century Glass-Steagall. But instead of going in that direction, 11 corporate Democrats decide, nah, we're going to go with the banks. Now, Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, look, so she's a mixed bag, but on financial issues, she's actually fantastic. So now on this one, she said, the bill increases the risk of another taxpayer bailout, and I will continue to challenge supporters of the bill from both parties to explain why they stand on the side of big banks instead of working families. So who are these Democrats who support it? They are Senator Tom Carper from Delaware, Chris Coons, Delaware. Now, that's important because Delaware actually has the least amount of regulations for corporations. So not a surprise there. And then, of course, you have Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, North Dakota, of course. John Tester of Montana, Mark Warner of Virginia, Claire McCaskill of Missouri, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Tim Kaine of Virginia, Gary Peters of Michigan, and Michael Bennet of Colorado. So these are the 11 Democrats who think that being on the side of Wall Street is fantastic. That is awesome. And actually, we're going to deregulate the banks more. Not, look. In 2008, these same banks doing these same kind of practices, at least when it comes to financial speculation and all this kind of stuff, crashed the economy. And yet here the Democrats saying, yeah, look, Dodd-Frank's great, was a good idea, but I think we should just deregulate the banks even more. We think it was a little too tough. But Dodd-Frank is completely watered down. You know what Iceland did? They nationalized the banks and jailed the bankers. You know what's going on with them now? They actually have a booming economy, and they're doing excellent. And they have things like, again, universal health care. I wonder if we should have went in that direction. And look, yes, they nationalized the banks, and then they actually gave it back to private companies. But they jailed the bankers that caused their own recession. And what did we do? We passed weak sauce legislation. We looked forwards instead of backwards. And now, of course, these politicians that are owned by the bankers, that are owned by the corporations, they continue to chip away at Dodd-Frank. And this is another example of doing so. Hey, resistance. I thought you guys were supposed to be resisting the Republicans. I thought you were supposed to be resisting Trump. Trump loves deregulation. He'll sign any piece of deregulation, legislation that you put in front of him. He doesn't care. He's just like, oh, regulation bad. Yeah, I was trying to deregulate Dodd-Frank. I thought you were supposed to be resisting Trump. No. This resistance, it's not about resisting Trump. It's about actually resisting progressives. They work for their donors. The only thing that they care about is resisting progressives and resisting progress. Over and over, we see these same Democrats vote in favor of massive deregulation alongside of Republicans, working with Republicans to deregulate. Is it any wonder why the American people see these two parties as essentially the same thing? They work for the same donors, and the Democrats are paid to lose. Look, they don't work for you. They work for donors. The Republicans, yes, they have no shame. They're 100% in the pocket of corporations and the rich. We knew that already. But the Democrats, like the Democrats are the ones, with the exception of a few principled progressives, they're the ones that'll sell you down the river for their corporate masters, all while doing it with a smile. In some ways, they're even more insidious than the Republicans, because at least they try to hide it. Well, in this case, you cannot hide, because we will find out what you're doing. We'll find out who's paying you to do what, and we'll call you out on it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.